Hello, everyone. James here, and I want to talk about a different topic. I'm not going to talk about the polls or anything like that. I've been hearing a lot of things about Black Lives Matter being socialist or Marxist, and so I felt that was kind of weird. They said that, a lot of people are saying that they're against the nuclear family and everything like that. And when just a normal person, you go up to a normal person and you may ask about Black Lives Matter. That the first thing that they would think about is being against police brutality against African Americans and how that's wrong. And I can agree with that 100%. And the majority of Americans do. But there's a lot of people out there that they will admit, yes, Black lives do matter, but they're against the nuclear family. They're Marxists and they're socialists. So I actually had to dig some digging, and I wanted to find out for myself. I'm not gonna be a dumbass and watch CNN, Fox News, or MSNBC and just listen to what they have to say. I'm actually gonna think for myself. So what better place to go to than the actual website, Black Lives Matter. So this is under Black Lives Matter, what we believe. Okay. And it's you just go on blacklivesmatter.com under about. It says what we believe, and then you can pull this up. So I actually kind of read this. A lot of it's liberal and things of that nature, which is their opinion. But I'm trying to look for something that people are referring to as Marxist, or people referring to as against the nuclear families. And I did find something, and I'm going to dissect it word by word. Okay? So if you go down here, right here, right here, this is what I'm going to look at more clearly. Okay? So I'm just going to read it to you real quick. It says, disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended family and villages, and collectively care for one another, especially our children, to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable. Okay, so obviously this has nothing to do with police brutality, so you gotta understand the psychology. I did ask a friend of mine what this meant, and they said, oh, it's just the old African way of doing things or whatever, and has nothing to do with socialism or anything like that. And I'm like, okay, well, you're going to go to your neighbors and knock on their door and say, hey, you take care of my kid, I take care of your kid, I work these hours, I work that hour, just go ahead and take care of each other on a voluntary basis. So what I'm now curious about is this a voluntary, or is this more involuntary as far as their beliefs? So do they believe that the government needs to be expanded for new programs and for this kind of stuff? Are they against the nuclear families? Another thing I'm going to look into. Okay. And or is it just a neighborhood thing? Is it just, we believe in taking care of our neighbors on a voluntary basis? So we're gonna take just a dive into this. Okay. And I'm just going to read it word for word, and I'm going to kind of dissect this more in depth, because I know a lot of people are out there. Some people don't know what's going on. Some people claim that they know what's going on. So, but I like to be literal about it and read it word for word. So let me go ahead and read the first line. Disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure. If you stop right there, that would say that they are against the nuclear family. Okay, but let's go ahead and expand on that. We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear structure requirement by supporting each other as extended family and villages. So what they're saying is they disrupt, meaning that they're against the nuclear family structure requirement. What requirement are they talking about? Are they talking about the nuclear family structure are they arguing that they don't want a husband and wife with children? Or are they arguing something else? So we got to really dig deep into this. So when you say we disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement, well, what is required? That is the question. So now you can look at after requirement. It says by supporting each other as extended family and villages. So in clarity, to be a little bit more clear, what they mean by this is they don't want to have a requirement for the nuclear family to take care of their children. Okay? And so what they're saying is, this is how I gather it. If you can afford it and if you want to take care of your own children, that's fine. Okay, so they're not going to be against that. But what they are against is the nuclear family, or I should say the Western prescribed nuclear family, the requirement for them to take care of the children. So what does that mean? I mean, well, obviously we have public schools, but there's other stuff that they don't have, like daycare, you know. So, requiring the government and taxpayers to pay for their daycare. I mean, that's an example right there. Or you have the free lunch program, you have reduced lunch. So that's it. But the whole thing in having this paragraphs, if they want a purpose, they want a change. It's just not there for flutter. Okay, it's not there just to make it look nice and to fill in the gaps. Okay, they want some type of change. So what type of change are they looking for here? Okay, they want to support each other as extended families. So what they're saying is it takes a village to raise a child, that collectively care for one another. So they want the community to care for each other, especially our children, to the degrees that mothers, parents, children are comfortable. So they don't want to have the financial burden on the parents. Okay? So their philosophy is if the parents can afford to have the child, that we need more programs to be able to pay for those services. Okay, if you can afford it, that's fine. But if you can't afford it, we need more government programs. Okay, so who's going to pay for these programs? Well, I mean, it's taxpayers that are going to pay for these programs. So going back, and I'm talking about additional programs. Obviously, we already have some programs intact, but when you talk about to care for one another, especially our children, to the degrees mothers, parents, and children are comfortable, they never even include the word father in there, which I found very interesting. Okay, so this is probably geared towards more single mothers. And so what they want is more programs for them, such as daycare, anything that's around the children, like daycare or more food or something like that. So when the conservatives are saying, well, they're against the nuclear family, that's technically not true, to the fact that they're okay with it, but you're going to have to pay more. Okay, if you can afford to have kids, like I believe in the term, if you can't feed them, don't breed them. That's what I believe in. Well, they don't believe in that. Okay, they believe that if a single mother can't afford to have the children, I believe in personal responsibility, but they believe in more government programs. And who's going to pay for it? It's the taxpayers. It's a forced. It's forced upon the taxpayers. They're going to pay for the daycare. They're going to pay for internet, whatever they need to have. They're going to pay for it. Okay, so when someone says that they're more Marxist or socialist, this is what they're talking about right here. They're talking about, this isn't about black people being killed by cops. This is something totally different. This is about, they disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement. They don't want the family structure to be required. Okay, they're not saying that we're against the Western prescribed nuclear family structure. They're not saying that we're against a mother and father raising the kids and then have the mother and father pay for the daycare if it's needed, or pay for the food, or whatever program it is. They're not saying that they're against that. Okay, but what they're saying is that they're against the requirement for the parents, or parent, I should say, to support their children, that they want the villages to help. So what I gather this as a conservative, what I see is dollar signs floating around. Like, it's going to cost a lot more money to get more programs. Okay, and so when you talk about like Marxist and socialism, is that a little bit too much? Maybe not. But there is some truth to that, because when you look at this sentence here, they don't like the requirement. That's the big deal. It's the requirement. Okay, they don't like the requirement of the family to take care of their children. So what they're saying is that we don't want to be forced when we have children, or when I have children. We don't want to be forced to pay for them. Okay, we want to have the village pay for our children. That's how I see that. If I can't afford it now, if you can afford it, not only are you going to pay for your children, but you're going to pay for everybody else's who can't afford them. Okay, so that's how I see this. So, in a way, they're kind of against the nuclear family, but at the same time, they're not against. I mean, it's hard to explain, but they are not against the nuclear family on a personal level. So if you're a father, mother, raising children, and you can afford to have it, or if you're making 6-figure salary or whatever it is, or even $50,000 a year, it doesn't really matter how much you're making. But what they want is more government assistance for single mothers and families. And who's going to pay for that? The taxpayers. And as I said, a lot of people won't agree with me on this, but I believe that in personal responsibility, and I believe that if you can't feed them, don't breed them. Okay? And I'm always going to believe in that. I mean, should there be safety nets? Maybe, but when you have it like this, and you have 40% of the country, almost half of the country, on some type of government assistance or something, and you want more, it's just going to create more of a burden for taxpayers. So that's kind of how I feel about it. And it's not voluntary. It's involuntary. Okay, and this is concerning. If you're a fiscal conservative and you see this, this is concerning to you. Okay, I waited until I was in my late 30s to have children. If you're irresponsible and you have children, when you can't afford to have them, and then you expect everybody else to pay for them, that's a problem in my opinion. And as I said, not everyone's going to agree with that, but that's what I believe in. So when you hear conservatives saying they're against the nuclear family, that's partially true. I'm not going to say it's completely true. I'm trying to be fair here, okay? It's partially true to the point that they're against the requirement that you should take care of your kids. Okay, that shouldn't be required. According to them, it should be the villages that would take care of the children if the mother, or even possibly mother and father, can't afford it. Okay, rather be daycare. It doesn't get into specifics, but you can think about it: daycare, extra food, maybe mortgage assistance. Some type of mortgage assistance because they can't pay the mortgage. Whatever the case is. Okay, free internet. Then nothing's ever free, but the government would provide internet access, and I know that's happening in certain parts of the country. Okay, and obviously healthcare. That's an obvious one. You have the Obamacare, but Obamacare costs money to the taxpayers, and sometimes they have to pay for certain things. Just because you're a family making $30,000 a year and you get insurance for free, it doesn't mean that you're going to have everything's for free. There's some co-payments that you have to pay, and there's a few things in Obamacare you may have to pay for, even though it may be free, or maybe $50 a month for a family of four making $30,000 to $35,000 a year. It may be something like that, but they still have to pay. But if they say, well, I can't afford it, then this is going towards quote unquote free national health care, which is really taxpayer health care, and it's going to skyrocket your taxes. So this here, when I see this, I see dollar signs coming out of my pocket. I see a hole being burnt in my pocket. And this is a case of socialism, possibly Marxism. There is a case for it. Maybe Marxism is a little bit dramatic, but definitely socialism. Definitely. So, and it is somewhat against the nuclear family structure. I'm not saying it's totally. They're just against the requirement. They didn't say that they're against the nuclear family. They're against the requirement of the nuclear family to take care of children. Anyways, what do you think about this? Any comments would be greatly appreciated. Like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.